Hello, welcome to Chicago State University's Black Media and Entertainment Industry Conference. This four-day event is sponsored by the Department of Communications, Media, Arts, and Theater here at Chicago State University. For access to the conference program, please go to csu.edu/CMAT and click on events. I'd also like to add that Chicago State will have a full schedule of face-to-face classes in the fall. Go to CSU.edu for more information about registration and scholarships. My name is Derek Dow. I am a full-time lecturer at the digital media in the Department of Communications, Media Arts, and Theater at Chicago State University. I am pleased to be here with the great Jiba Molei Anderson, CEO of Griot Enterprises. Jiba has 20 plus years in the creative industry as an illustrator, graphic designer, writer, and educator. Through his company, Griot Enterprises, he has the flagship IP of Horsemen. He has been tapped in and speak as a lecturer at the Smithsonian and also is a part-time lecturer here at Chicago State University. Welcome, brother. Welcome.
Hello. Hey, how's everybody doing out there? Thank you for having me here.
Yes, that was listen, I have to swallow. That was a mouthful for me. I have to swallow. Go, Okay, let's get ready for this interview.
Okay.
Oh, man, I'm happy to have you here specifically because as an artist, you cover a base that I'm not as familiar with, which is comics, illustration, and things like that, right? I'm an artist in the traditional, and not traditional, but in the sense of television, film, something that's more common, right? Um, Talk about how you got into it. I do believe your father was an artist as well, right?
My father is an architect.
Is an architect, but you
Yes.
like him to draw for you, right?
There, well, uh, to be honest with you, I feel like I've been genetically bred to be an artist and an educator because of the fact that I have artists on both sides of my family. Um, yeah, my father is an architect.
Mhm.
At the same time, my mother is also handy with thread and yarn. She sews. She makes her own clothes. She does T-shirts. She does the cooking. She does the baking. She's turned that into hustles, throughout our life and whatnot. So I've been born into sort of like this artistic tradition. And I'm not just talking about my parents,
Mhm.
in addition to like my cousins, aunts, and uncles. I'm the oldest of four. All four of us are creatives, you know. So I was really lucky to be born into a family that understood or that embraced the arts, and a lot of them turned that into their careers.
Mm.
So, with my dad being an architect, uh, he saw that when I was a little boy, he saw that I really enjoyed the Batman television show. I'm talking about the 66 television show, which was in reruns when I was a little kid, as I'm dating myself right now. As you can tell, I'm not in my 30s. But he saw that, and he also saw that as a little kid, I picked up, the pencil, crayon, whatever, the piece of paper, and I started drawing. And so he liked comic books. And one day he brought home a comic book for me,
Mhm.
which happened to be a Batman comic book. And from that got me into the art of comics, and that got me into um, thinking about comic books as a viable career.
Mhm.
And so, at a certain point, children want to be their parents. So at the age of 8, I wanted to be an architect like my dad, till I found out that you didn't really draw people, and I didn't really enjoy math that much at the time.
Mhm.
And so by the age of 10, as I kept drawing, I realized that I wanted to be a comic book artist. And when I say that, I'm saying that it wasn't my dream to, say, draw Batman. It wasn't my dream to draw the X-Men or Superman or Justice League. My dream was to create comics
Mhm.
and create my own comics. And so that dream from the age of 10 was the fuel that drove my career.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Which is interesting, right? Because a lot of people don't get to tap into their passion that early in life. So
Hmm.
the fact that you even did that was great. I saw a little interview with you where you were drawing stick figures of the Batman, and you said sooner or later, like, I need to start drawing features
Right.
on the characters. So you were just growing little steps at a time. I
Yeah,
love
it was like five. I was doing stick figures. Around six, I was like, I need to do more than stick
that.
figures.
And you come from Detroit.
Yeah, born and raised.
How did that affect you as an artist?
Uh, that's a good question. I mean, Detroit is part of my artistic DNA, right? It's like I come from the land of Motown. I come from I come from the birthplace of techno, right? And all of those things have influenced me, right? The Detroit vibe, the Detroit spirit, the 313, if you will, is a part of my DNA.
Mhm.
And that definitely comes through in my artwork. I also look at Detroit as a hub of Afrofuturistic thought. And I say that because, with the automotive crash, in the late 70s, the early 80s, when we were going through that and white flight and things of that nature, Detroit really, in some ways, felt like um, it was definitely post industrial. It was in some ways, I don't want to say post apocalyptic, but definitely Detroit had this and has this sort of Afrofuturistic vibe, like being surrounded by the art of Detroit, by the DIY aspect
Mhm.
of artists in Detroit, because especially during that time, uh, the art scene in Detroit wasn't super supportive. And so, as an artist from Detroit, you had to figure out the hustle. You had to figure out how to navigate your space, how to get your work out there, um, in a city that had very little infrastructure.
Wow.
And so when I think about Motown, when I think about Detroit techno, and I think about Detroit artists, I think about my peers and my colleagues, like the poet Jessica Care Moore. We came up together, we did poetry together. But we all have that DIY can do spirit. And that definitely shaped what Griot Enterprises became. And it's the reason why Griot Enterprises exists,
Mhm.
right? It was something that myself and, at the time, had two other partners, we created with our bare hands. And we created solely out of the whole idea of like, yeah, we can do this. Like, who's saying that we can't do it? Anybody who says that we can't do it, it's like, you don't know what you're talking about because we gonna do it. And so it got done.
Right. All right. I like it. It makes sense why you're a world builder now. Because of that, you came to Chicago Art Institute, got your MFA.
Hmm.
What made you stay? I mean, besides it being the greatest city in the world, what made you stay?
Well, what made me stay in Chicago? When I came to Chicago, I still had a bit of a nomadic spirit
Mhm.
in the sense that I was young, I came to Chicago to get my master's degree. I figured that I would probably get it here and then go off and start my career somewhere else. What happened was that when I got to Chicago, Chicago and I vibed. And what I saw in Chicago, like I saw there was more of an infrastructure um, for artists here. I also saw that a lot of people didn't tap that infrastructure
Mhm.
because they didn't quite know how. And so taking that Detroit DIY attitude with the resources that Chicago had, it allowed me to create the career here. And also with Chicago, what happened was that I developed my friend family here. I developed my support system. And it turned out to be a very, very deep and dense support system. And so eventually Chicago became home. And that's why I'm still in Chicago. And especially now, because in the 21st century, with digital and everything, I can do work literally across the globe from my home base. So I don't need to necessarily move to New York or move to LA in order to make things happen.
Right. I love that. I love that. I tell my students and people that all the time. They're like, I gotta go here, I gotta go there. Like, if you're not doing it where you're at, you're not gonna do it in these different places.
Exactly.
You're not gonna do it. So the work is where you have to start where you're at. You gotta just start putting the work in now.
Right.
And then hopefully, like you say, you can work in these other places
Mm-hmm.
and probably can stay where you're at. Or go or move or whatever,
Or do whatever.
Or do
But the point is, as you said perfectly, the point is that if you don't have the wherewithal to do the work, no matter where you are, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
Now I will say this: if you are in an area, I don't know, in the United States or whatever, that doesn't have an infrastructure, it doesn't have a support system, where you can find like-minded people, you may have to move somewhere else, just to change your environment and just to be in a different space with your kin, if you will, with kindred spirits.
Right.
If you are in that space, you don't necessarily have to move anywhere to be in a different space. And then again, as I said, with the digital, especially like with social media, Facebook and whatnot, I mean, you have the potential to be connected to people around the globe, and you have the potential to form relationships with people from different areas that you may not be able to get to financially. So you have to be open. Even though, like, I'm living locally, you have to think in a global mindset in order to get your work out there. But again, if you don't have the work, then all of that is moot.
Right. So speaking of work, and you talked about Griot Enterprises, which is your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got two partners, but let's expound on why you created that.
Why did I create Griot Enterprises?
Mm-hmm.
I created Griot Enterprises because I wanted to get into the comic book industry, and I did not want anybody to say that I couldn't. Simple as that. When people don't understand about the comic book industry, especially if all they know about the comic book industry is DC or Marvel Comics. What you don't know is that there are an extremely finite number of roles or number of positions that you can be employed at DC or Marvel. Okay, they only print out so many books, right? They have artists and writers and letterers and colorists and editors that they already work with. If you are a new artist getting into the business, back then when I got in, the hopeful idea was like, yeah, you got your portfolio, you go to the conventions, you find an editor or somebody that likes you, you can get a gig. That's not the case anymore. Right. Especially now as DC and Marvel are just these big IP farms, right? And also because of the fact that if you're working with a DC or Marvel, you are not an employee, you are a freelancer. When a Batman movie or a Superman movie comes out, you don't make any extra money from that movie coming out, unless you created a character that's featured prominently in that movie or in that other media. And even then, that's an iffy part of it. There are numerous interviews with artists and writers out there. Actually, Ed Brubaker, co-creator of the Winter Soldier had an interview out where it's like he's not getting any residuals from the Winter Soldier being featured in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or shall I say Captain America and the Winter Soldier now. You know, you see a lot of those stories. So if you think Marvel and DC are the end all be all, that's not it. Really, especially nowadays, especially because the industry has been democratized with crowdfunding, with print on demand, with digital distribution.
Okay.
You don't have to work for DC or Marvel to get your vision out there. As a matter of fact, if you have your own vision, working for DC or Marvel could be a detriment to getting that vision out there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that DC or Marvel comics are the devil. As a matter of fact, I have many colleagues who do work for, as I like to call them, the corporate too, but they also do work for other comic book companies, for independent comic book companies, for video games, for role-playing games, you know, designing album covers, things of that nature. You have to be diverse as an artist in your career. And if you want to have a career in comics, especially if you were thinking about having your IP go to different realms, then why try and sell that IP to another company when you can do the work if you want to, or if you have the wherewithal to do the work? And I'm not just saying creating, but I'm also saying marketing. I'm also saying getting that distribution in line. You know, pounding the pavement like we do in CMAT, you know? The class for those in CMAT that have taken my class, or even those who are in my class right now for web content management, you're seeing the importance of marketing. You're seeing the importance of getting the word out there, getting the advertising out there. That's another important part of this business that you have to do in order to be successful. You have to do it all, right? And if you can't do it all, you have to put together a team that you trust in order to make this vision become a reality.
Love it. You know what it kind of reminds me of? Tim Burton. Tim Burton got fired from Disney, or let go from Disney, or however, because you know his brand of drawing, right?
Yeah, right.
And it took for him to make Batman and a couple other movies for Disney to come back and like, yo, we'll make A Nightmare Before Christmas now.
Right. He had to do, he had to do Pee-wee's. He had to do 2 Pee-wee movies.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice. And then do Batman.
And
Batman Returns. And then Disney was like, oh, wait a second. Oh, maybe we need to, right.
We were wrong, you know? So it's just a matter of like, sometimes you have to force your potential down people's throats, you know? You just kind of got to make it.
Well, you do, you know? I mean, if you do have a distinct vision, right? You do have to not necessarily force it down people's throats, but you have to wave that flag, right? And you have to, again, you have to do the work. You have to figure out a way to make yourself heard.
Right.
And you do make yourself heard, or people hear you, when the work you do is good, and also when you consistently do the work.
Right.
It's not enough to just do one thing, put it out there, and expect to become an overnight success. That does not happen. Overnight success does not happen.
No, it's 10 years. 10 years. They say it takes 10 years to be overnight success.
Yeah. And
on the good side.
on the good side.
Yeah.
Also, on the rare occasions that, you know, you do see people like hit it right out the park, right? You notice how they don't last long. I mean, the one hit wonder is real.
Oh, it's real.
It's very real. Especially if you are not thinking beyond the one hit, right? Especially if you don't have a vibe, that you have a voice and that you have something to say, you know, and you have a unique position to say it. one of the things, and you don't just see it in comics, you see it in a lot of creative endeavors, you know, especially music, especially uh, acting, things of that nature, as well. You see people wanting to replicate the success of what they've seen come before.
Right.
Thing about it is that you cannot replicate that success. Quite simply because you are not that person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
There's only one George Lucas, and George Lucas already did Star Wars.
Mm.
Nobody cares about your version of Star Wars, right? Because they already got Star Wars right there.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? We already have Tupac.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to hear a Tupac knockoff.
Right.
You feel me? That sort of thing. So you have to really, you have to figure out what your voice is if you're going to have a career, right?
Right.
And it's not that you don't listen to or you're not influenced by things that you've seen, but you can't copy that. You know, just have that become a part of your DNA, a part of your skill, a part of your style and flavor, you know? And also take the time to find your own voice from that.
Right.
Because yes, you can reference history, and I reference history a lot. And in addition to making this stuff, I'm an historian of this stuff. I like to see who came before me, right? You know, right now people talk about Black comics and it's new and blah, blah, blah. And this is a whole new thing that's popped up. Man, Black folks have been in comics since the beginning of the comic book industry. One of the greatest cartoons, strips of the 20th century was created by a Black man, right? Crazy Cat, George Harriman. He created that. It's regarded as one of the greatest comic strips ever, right? We've had cartoonists like Jackie Orms and Matt Baker from the 50s, you know? We have cats from the 60s and the 70s, like underground cartoonists like Grass Green, you know? In the 70s and 80s, we've had cats working in DC and Marvel like Billy Graham and Chuck Patton and Paris Cullins. You see where I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? It's like it's not new, and it does make sense to study those who came before and study their histories, and then have them add to your language.
Okay.
But you don't have to copy their language in order to be heard. You use that as inspiration, not imitation.
Love it. Love it. So let's say this: you got your voice, you've been doing the work, you know, you're pretty well-rounded. What are some outlets for, you know, comics or stuff like that for say some of the younger audience to put their work out? You know, because as if I'm a rapper, I have SoundCloud, I have like TikTok. If I'm a filmmaker, I have YouTube and Vimeo and stuff like that. Where can some of the younger artists put their stuff to be seen more?
Well, there are, you know, I mean, there are a number of things that you can do. I mean, basically, on the first lick, you have social media. So, you know, you can post your work up on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, have people check it out, have people comment on it. There are also a number of places where you can put your stuff up digitally, like webcomics and things of that nature. I don't want to mispronounce the names. I want to say webtoons, but that is wrong. Give me a hot second, where I'm typing in webcomics, and so where people can pick them up. So you can go to, oh, crikey. There's so many places. There's a place called Webtoons,
Okay.
that you can go and put your stuff up there for free and whatnot. If you're serious about getting into the comic book industry and doing your own work and putting your own books out there, you can set up a Patreon page to find people who believe in your work and help finance that.
Mhm.
When the book is ready to go, you can crowdfund that using Kickstarter. You could put your book up for sale, not only digitally, but print wise. If you go to places like indieplanet.com or drivethroughcomics.com, those are two of the places I use.
Mhm.
Or you could put your book up on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. They have print on demand capabilities as well. So there are a lot of avenues
Mhm.
to get your stuff out there,
Right.
right? What I would say to young creators is don't put the cart before the horse. Take the time to actually develop your project. Take the time to develop that IP, you know, take the time to do the work and develop your craft. Okay. Um, with the arts, it's not a youth game per se. You know what I mean? Um, it's not like necessarily you'll be missing out if your book doesn't come out that day, right? Or if your project doesn't come out that day, especially if it comes out before it's ready to come out. I'm not saying that it has to be perfect, but I am saying that it has to be ready to, be released and be received by the audience. So take the time to do that.
Right. Nice. I love it. Ken Jackson, he says, I'm an underground cartoonist and entrepreneur in Detroit. How do you recommend I sell myself? Should I be willing to work for other companies as I build my
Um, yeah. I
own? Like, yeah, absolutely.
mean, yeah, yeah. Don't be afraid to collect a check. You know what I'm saying? Like, in addition to me doing Griot Enterprises, it's not the only stuff I do. Like I said, I've written all the things that I said about doing other projects for other people. I've written for role-playing games. As a matter of fact, I have like my third role-playing game this year that I have to write for. I have done album covers. As a matter of fact, I'm working on an album cover right now for Wu-Tang affiliate Killer Priest.
Mhm.
Um, I do a lot of things. I teach, I do all of these things because all of this is part of an artist's life. All of this is part of, if you will, the grind, the hustle. All of these different avenues are feeding different aspects of myself and my career and what I do, and so I flex them.
Right.
Right now, the other question was, how do you recommend that I sell myself?
Mhm.
First of all, you have to be your authentic self to sell yourself. Right now, in this presentation, I'm selling myself.
Mhm.
And for those attendees that are watching, those who are students of mine, y'all know this is me all day, every day, right? This is me in a suit. This is me in a t-shirt, right? This is me back when I had earrings in my ear, so on and so forth. Um, and I saw myself as myself. I am an illustrator. I am a writer. I am a graphic designer. I am an educator. I play all of those aspects up
Mhm.
in this business of promoting myself. Okay. At the same time, I also embrace the totality of my culture, not
Mhm.
only being African American, but also being Liberian. My mother is Liberian. You know, I'm 100% Liberian on my mom's side. I've got the dual consciousness, or I like to call it bicultural aspect
Okay.
of myself playing up. So I play that up, right? Even in the work that I create, all the work that I create, unless I'm doing something corporate or something like that, but
Right.
all of the work that I create references African and African American culture. That's another way of how I brand myself. So when people look for my work, they are looking for my work. It's
Right.
not necessarily that they're looking for somebody, I need somebody that can draw in this style. I'm not that dude, you know? And most artists aren't that people. And so, and I will see people like look for, I need an artist that draws in an anime style like this. Well, the thing about it is like, well, you need to hire that person that drew that style,
Right.
you know? But if you're hiring me, this is what you're going to get. And I've made that abundantly clear in the way that I represent and in the way that I uh, sell myself. Now, the practical way of selling yourself, to answer that question for him, is to make sure your Instagram account is on point, because you need social media to sell yourself, right? So, get that Instagram account up, get that Facebook page up. More importantly, get that website up, because that Facebook page, that Instagram page, that Twitter feed, so on and so forth, those are just pieces of the puzzle. If you do not have a hub where people can come to and check out your work and check out who you are, free and uncluttered from all the other stuff going around in social media, then why I can't work with you. A lot of people can't work with you,
Right.
At that point. As an example, with my anthology series, 4 pages, 16 bars, a visual mixtape, I developed that to showcase independent works from creators of color. Now, in that showcase, when people submit to the anthology, first of all, I make sure that the work is professionally up to snuff. I am the editor. People want to talk about gatekeepers. Yeah, I'm the gatekeeper for this anthology. And the reason why I'm the gatekeeper for this anthology is because I'm an educator, graphic designer, illustrator, and writer. I know exactly what I'm looking for. So, first of all, if you submit to this, first of all, I have to make sure that you follow the guidelines, 4 to 8 pages plus a cover, right? I'm checking to make sure that everything reads well, looks well, is designed well. Most importantly, you need to come with a bio, a biography, a short biography talking about the work that you have done. Most importantly, you need a website that I can put into the book so that readers, after they see your little snippet, can go check out more of your stuff. Right. Facebook page link don't count. Instagram link don't count. We need that website so that people can go to your website, see your homepage, your about page, what your services page, you know what I mean? Or your portfolio page, whatever you do. And also the contact page. How can people contact you if they want your stuff? If you don't have that together, you need to get that together. Because those are elements of being a professional creator.
I'd also like to add too, when you're adding in your website and any other social media that you have, keep it consistent, because it shouldn't be, Griot Enterprises over here, but then Enterprises of the drawer over here, and then Enterprise, I did that yesterday over here. It should just all be the same thing. I should be able to type it in and find it easily.
You should.
All your social media.
Yeah, you should do that. You should do that. I slightly break that rule, but you should do that.
You should do that.
You should do that. Well, I mean, I break the rule in the sense there's either one or two, right? So it's like Griot Enterprises all the live long day. And then you have my handle Jazz Intellect, JAZ, 1Z, INTELLECT. So, so on Instagram, I'm Jazz Intellect, but you go on that page, it's all Griot stuff, you know what I mean? And then, of course, on Facebook, I got my Griot Enterprises page and that sort of thing, right? And keeping it consistent with the Griot Enterprises page goes to Griot Enterprises, or there's a Horseman page, you know what I mean? The Horseman and that sort of thing. So the branding is there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. And guys in the audience, if you have any questions, please submit them, and I will do my best to get to as many of them as possible. I do want to go into inspiration. You have an IP called The Horseman. This done really well for you. How are you inspired? How do you like nourish your inspiration? How do you stay inspired? How do you keep going?
Ooh, okay. Um, I keep going because I'm used to it. Like at a certain point,
Mhm.
at a
Mhm.
certain point, at a certain point, this has become again part of my DNA,
Right.
right? And not to say that it's old hat, but it's like I got to keep the business going. This is, this is my business. You know what I mean? This is how people recognize me now. Um, Getting inspired by news stories and how do how do I find my inspiration? I mean, again, with the Horseman, I created my world, and so I want to keep that world going.
Okay.
Um, in the beginning, uh, I was inspired by getting my name out there, and I was working to get my name out there. Even when my name was out there, I was in the mindset of getting my name out there. At this point, right now, with all the kind words that people have been saying to me for the past couple years, it's like, oh man, you're a legend. Oh man, you're the dude. You know what I'm saying? Like you're a pioneer. Like you're the man. You know how much pressure that is, right? Especially at my age, people call me legend and elder statesman and stuff like that. I'm not 50 yet. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
still got a lot to do, but I will say this. It is a wonderful feeling to be called that
Mhm.
because that's when and for other people to call you that, not when you call yourself. I am not Kanye like that. I didn't call myself a genius, so other people say, yeah, he's a genius. No, it's like other people have thrown that title on me,
Right.
which I am humbled by and which I completely and utterly respect. With that being said, I also know the weight of that,
Right.
the weight of that title, the weight of being called a leader, the weight of being called a pioneer, the weight of being called a legend. So the impetus now is like, well, I can't sleep. I can't rest on my laurels. Like every time I come out with something now it's gotta be fire. Like I
Right.
can't like there's no wiggle room. Like it's gotta be hot, right? The thing about it is that I have to make sure that it's hot, and I have to make sure that it feels hot to me, right?
Right.
Because when I'm creating something, it's like, yeah, I'm creating it, but at the same time, I'm creating something that I want to read.
Right.
So, when people talk about, critics and whatnot, no critic can say jack about my work because I am my toughest critic.
Right. Right.
If I'm not coming 100%, I know I'm not coming 100%. And you won't see that. You know what I mean? You
Right.
won't see that. You will always see me coming at my best because that's how I want to see myself
Right.
at my best. So that is my motivation now, right? My motivation and my inspiration now is to solidify my legacy.
Love that. Love that.
you
I love,
know,
I love that. Jamila Hartgrove asks, "What's your process in world building?"
what's my process in world building?
Mhm.
I think about things. I think about things, and then um, it's like a puzzle piece,
Mhm.
right? And putting all that stuff together. In that world building process, one of the things that I don't do is that I don't limit myself in terms of like free association and imagination and stuff like that. I will I will go there. I will go out there, and I would say, "Am I going too far out there?" Okay, no, worry. Let me bring that back in a little bit. So it's like this interplay going on. And by the way, I'm building the world every day in my head. Like every day, I think about it, and ultimately, with the world of the Horsemen, I've gotten the rules of that universe down pat. Those rules are established. So what I have to do now is not necessarily plug and play because everything is set, but it's like, okay, I've got these parameters. Okay, this is what the story is about. Okay, for example, I'm working on a new Horseman graphic novel now, which I should be kickstarting around my birthday in August and whatnot. And so with this story, it's being told in 3 different time periods. It's being told past, present, and future. Very Sankofa right now. But in that, it's like the past, I can deal with a fantasy world, right? The present, I deal with this sort of like modern-ish real world kind of thing where I really deal with politics and stuff like that. It's really going to trigger some people, this next story, right? And then the third story, I talk about the future in this world and the franchise. So setting things up, right? With the Horsemen, I'm able to flex in those different areas. I'm able to play in those different areas. And that's what keeps it fresh. You know what I mean? And that's what keeps me inspired, like to revisit these different worlds again, you know? And plus enjoying like bringing new things into the mix, bringing new things that I've learned about different cultures or about different mythologies and bringing that into my Horseman world. Those are the things that inspire me and help me to world build and to continue to world build. Okay.
We have another question. Anthony Pierce asks, are you aspiring to turn the Horseman into an animation or live action? A goal for you? Is that something you're interested in doing?
I'm working on that right now. I don't, here's the thing. I don't mention what I'm doing until it's too late. In other words, I don't talk about what I'm doing until it's done.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So with that Horseman thing, yeah, and that's all you're gonna get right now. You know. Right. Now the next question is: should comic creators aspire to turn their projects into animated live action series or stick with comics? First of all, you can't have an animation series if you don't have the comic book first. I mean, unless you are going into animation or unless you are an animator, do not think of, if you are not an animator and you are working in comics, get your comic book off the ground first. Get that solidified. Get that concept to the point that you can then think about taking it to other media. And I say that because when the Horsemen first came out, I know we're coming to the end real quick. When the Horsemen first came out, back in 2002, I had people from Jump hitting me up to do movies or animation, stuff like that. I had BET reach out to me, right? And nothing came of it. I shouldn't say nothing came of it. I would say that every time I had somebody from other media approach me to do some stuff, it got me one step further to creating a package that by the time I got to the position where I'm in now, I had everything set. I had my pitch set, my animation pitch set. You know, I got theme music. Like in terms of the Horseman story, I have enough of that written, or I had that figured out, that now we can turn that into a series. But none of that would have happened if I didn't have the comic book first. So work on the comics first. Get the first part of your intellectual property solid before you start thinking about others.
There we go. But thank you, man. I really thank you for your time. We got to wrap it up. But I'm pretty sure everybody on here is extremely thankful for you. Just sharing your story, hitting us with the inspiration, letting us know some avenues we can go down to grow as comic artists, you know, and getting it done. Any last things you want to say?
If anything, I want to say this: don't let your fear get in your way. Yeah. Number one, do not let your fear get in your way. Number two, learn everything you can about the business before you begin. That includes, you know, especially if you're a Black writer, find other Black writers that are in this business. You ain't the only one. There are plenty of us out there. You know, learn about the Black history of comics as a Black creator, just so you can figure out that you ain't the only one and that there are other avenues for it. And there are books out there like that. Shameless plug, 4 pages, 16 bars, a visual mixtape, which you can find at griotenterprises.com. As a matter of fact, let me type in the website right now, you know, there you go. Go to griotenterprises.com. You check out 4 pages, 16 bars, a visual mixtape. You can see some of the people who are working in the industry right now. You get a little bit of the history of some people who came before you. There are other books like that, like Invisible Men, Black Comics, the Encyclopedia of Black Comics, so on and so forth. But look, that's the other piece of advice. Look and look around you.
Love it. Love it. So thank you on behalf of Chicago State. Thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing where your career goes next, man. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So for everyone else, guys, you can reuse the Zoom link to access the next panel. Please, no, I'm sorry. I believe they'll send you a new link for tomorrow's panel. The next panel will be Charles Andrew Gardner from the Chicago SAG-AFTRA. He's the president, and that panel, I believe, begins at 9 a.m. If you are a teacher applying to receive professional development credits for attending one of our 4 K through 12 accredited panels, please use the link in the chat to receive more information, or go to csu.edu/CMAT and click on events. All right. Oh, as a reminder, Chicago State will be in full face-to-face, full schedule in the fall. Go to csu.edu, check it out. Professor Dow signing out. Have a good one, guys.